And I need somebody to explain to me how that little furnace thing works, because I don't really dabble in cabins. So if someone could slide into our DMs and just give me a
great you say that, because we welcome our guest, the Property Brother. No, I'm kidding.
Hello. Do you want to play a game?
What's your favorite scary movie?
Be afraid. Be very afraid.
See dead people.
You're gonna need a bigger boat.
Here's Johnny.
The power of Christ compels you! The power of Christ compels you!
Whatever you do, don't fall asleep.
Welcome to Talking Horror with Jamie and Nikisha.
Hi, I'm Jamie.
And I'm Nikisha, and this is Talking Horror with Jamie.
And Nikisha.
Where we share our love for spooky things and talk horror through the lens of human behavior. Welcome, everyone, to our continuation of our beautiful Evil Dead chain that we are going through in preparation for the new one that is about to come out, which we are all super excited to see. So today, we are talking about the 2013 Evil Dead remake. And I'm super excited to talk about this because there is a lot going on and a lot of questions I have about just planted Easter eggs in this from previous Evil Dead movies. So I'm really excited that we watched the other ones before I saw this one. So this movie was directed by Fede Alvarez in his directorial debut, who also co-wrote the screenplay with Rodo Sayaguez. I was really trying to find somebody pronouncing his name, and no interview is pronouncing their names. And because these two are also responsible for the Don't Breathe 1 and 2, if you didn't know. I didn't know that until I was looking this up for preparation.
And he's directing the new Alien movie, too.
Mm-hmm. Oh, fantastic.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Just Alvarez, or both of them are going to be a part of it?
That I don't know, but I know that Fede Alvarez is going to be directing.
They're both. I just looked at it. Untitled Alien film. They co-wrote it together again.
Cool.
Beautiful. Yeah, that'll be really interesting to watch because I feel like there's some things that I love about what they do and some things that are a little questionable for me. So this movie, but we're talking about Evil Dead now, not future movies. It stars the one and only Jane Levy, who for me is Zoe's Extraordinary Playlist girl. So if I refer to her as Zoe, please know I'm talking about Jane Levy. But if you are a musical person, like all of us are on this podcast, you might enjoy Zoe's Extraordinary Playlist, which I believe is streaming on Hulu right now. So, side note. So, starring Jane Levy and Shiloh Fernandez, Lou Taylor Pucci, Jessica Lucas, and Elizabeth Blackmore. So, before we get into everything that is the remake of this Evil Dead, producer Brian, do you have some words for us?
Yeah, sure. Hey, everybody. If you're listening to us, thank you so much for tuning in. If you're watching us, we're on YouTube. Hi, YouTube.
Hello.
Thank you so much for supporting us. We're so happy to be finishing up all of the existing Evil Dead movies. Really excited for Evil Dead Rise. That'll be next week. But just a reminder that you can also follow us on all social media at Talk Horror Pod. You can find us on Twitter. You can find us on Instagram. And you can, of course, find us doing wild, fun things on TikTok. We're always covering new and fun movies there that we don't necessarily do on the podcast. So check us out there. Back to you, Nikisha.
Beautiful. So I've realized that I haven't been saying this before a couple of episodes because in my copy and paste, it went away somehow. But obviously have any spoilers for this. And Jamie, do you want to talk about trigger warnings?
Yeah.
Whoopsies.
That's a good point. Yeah.
I mean, we hope that you know that we are going to discuss these films.
Yeah.
In their full length, which includes any and all spoilers.
Yes.
And
Trigger warnings,
you
Jamie.
You're fine.
Yeah, I mean, it's a lot of A lot of things. A lot of blood.
Yeah. Trigger warnings. This is a insides on the outside for sure.
For sure.
There is a lot of appendages and cutting and slicing and ripping and stabbing and piercing and smashing of
drug addiction.
Of any of all body parts. There's drug addiction depicted and referenced. There's mental illness referenced as well. But yeah, it's just a big slashy fest, a big insides on the outside.
A slashy fest. I like that.
I would go to that festival.
I would go to that festival too. I feel like
I would be very careful. I would be very careful at that festival.
Yeah,
but I would go.
It'd be a good time. If you come out to live, it'll be a good time. Fantastic. Ooh. So before we get into everything else, I know that you guys have watched some things. So can you talk to us about what you've watched this week?
Sure. We finished season 1 of Ash vs. Evil Dead. I'm so... The show is scratching an itch that I needed to be scratched. Like, I just wanted more Bruce Campbell. I wanted more Ash. I wanted more, like, demon makeup. I wanted more just, like, quirky, fun, goofy. There are definitely scares in it that got me. Season 1 is a lot of fun. Season 1 expands on the lore. It retcons a little bit of stuff. For instance, okay, so the cabin in Evil Dead takes place in Tennessee. The cabin in Evil Dead 2, I think, is in North Carolina. The cabin is in Michigan on the TV show, and I think they're in Massachusetts in the one we just watched, Evil Dead 2013. Okay. So, like, the cabin is always changing locations, which is quite funny.
That's fantastic.
But, I'm having a blast. I cannot wait for season 2. I'm so happy that, like, I have a complete series to watch. And it's going to leave at the end of April, so Jamie and I are on it. She's watched it before, so she gets to watch me enjoy it, which is like, I'll let her speak to that, but I'm having a great time. And if you like the Evil Dead movies, the original ones, I don't see how you could not at least, dip your toe into Ash versus Evil Dead.
Fantastic.
Yeah, it's a great time. If you want more of, like, just Ash getting beat up, but also beating up on the Deadites, like, it delivers. That's exactly what it is. And I do look over to make sure Brian's enjoying it, so I am relieved to know that he is, in fact, enjoying it.
I've belly laughed a lot. Like, in that last episode, I was, like, cracking up. But also, I've been jump scared a lot. Like, and, like, it's also, some of it is chilling. Like, you
commented on how well the direction was, I think, in the finale of season 1.
Yeah, the season 1 finale direction was great. I really like the new characters. Sometimes you watch, like, reboots or requels or sequels or whatever we're calling, whatever specifically they are. And you're just kind of like, ugh, these characters are so lame. They just kind of added them to check boxes and stuff. These characters are great. They're fun. They're, I'm assuming they'll get more drawn out. Like, literally drawn out, not, like, stretched out. But layers as we go more into the seasons. But, like, man, I'm really digging it. I also did not know that this first season includes Lucy Lawless. She pops up in the premiere, so it's not a spoiler. And what a delight! I mean, she has always been she has always popped up on sci-fi shows that I've really enjoyed. Obviously, Xena Warrior Princess, but you also have her in Battlestar Galactica. She's wonderful. Parks and Rec. She's wonderful.
Yes.
This, she's wonderful. Like, man, sign me up, because I think one of the creators of this also, correct me if I'm wrong, Jamie, like, created or was the showrunner on Xena Warrior Princess.
Yeah, there's some connection. I think it's like
one of the Evil Dead producers or something.
Yeah, I forget.
Anyway, highly suggest Ash versus Evil Dead. You're probably binging a lot of these now, catching up. You may be just listening to this to catch up. I would highly suggest watching it. It was on Starz from 2015 to 2018, and now again, it ends its run on Netflix at the end of April. So. I would say get on it. It's really fun. They're only half-hour episodes too. The 10 episodes each season. They're half hours. They go by really quickly. The only one is the series premiere, which is like an hour. So, but it's directed by Sam Raimi.
The Robert Tappert is one of the founding partners of Ghost House Pictures, which is Sam Raimi's production company, and he is married to Lucy Lawless.
Oh, okay.
Oh. First off, to be married to Xena, warrior princess, is already top tier. So
how is that like not like if you're like a kid in the 90s watching that, like how are you not like, oh my god, I want to marry Xena, and then like you like actualize your dream, like
exactly
cool.
Yeah. Plus, she's also married to Ron Swanson. That only elevates Ron Swanson in the history of TV show characters or characters in any form of media.
Truly, the only person who could marry Ron Swanson is Xena, warrior princess. That was just a match made in heaven, and such a wonderful thing that they did for him. Absolutely agree, hands down.
100%.
So we are a Xena Stan podcast now, everyone. We're going to start watching Xena, Warrior Princess. Yes. Great. Okay, well, let's talk about Evil Dead, which also I don't think I mentioned, but Bruce Campbell and Sam Raimi are producers on this one as well, even though Bruce is not in it and Sam did not write it or direct it or anything, but they threw money towards it.
Wait, did you stick through the end of the credits?
No, and I literally kind of like forwarded through and I saw nothing. What?
It's like literally the last second after all of the credits.
I hate it. Okay. Do I need to go back? Can you tell me what happened? Is Bruce there?
Yeah, I don't want to make you go all the way back. That would be frustrating. You literally see, it's like black, and then you see like the shadow of Ash come out, and he like looks and he just goes groovy, and then it's over.
That's all it is.
That's literally all that it is. I don't want to make you go through the whole thing.
I just got goosebumps with Jamie just explaining that. I also was
like, Brian, don't touch anything, just let it go, and because I know normally you're like, oh, I gotta click through. I mean, actually, you're good at sticking through credits. I just didn't want you to get too antsy about it.
No, definitely not. Plus, the score of this one, we'll talk about that in my likes. I really enjoyed the score, so even just like listening to the score as the credits rolled, like, was totally fine with me. I also like reading credits. I'm a big proponent of like the credits are like the stage dooring in some ways, or the credits are like reading the playbill afterwards. Like, it's very much like I want to see who did what, how many people put effort and energy into this movie, especially if I like a movie. Spoiler alert, I really love this movie. So that's been my my parlor talk on watching credits, I guess. I don't know.
Come, sit, have a drink. It's parlor talk.
I love that too. No, it's like showing acknowledgement of all the hard work that went into that movie. So I totally get it. Well, before we get into our likes and gripes, we do need a 2-minute plot summary of this. So who would like to volunteer?
What's the plot?
Oh, Nikisha, did you just volunteer?
I did. I knew it. I had a feeling. Ooh. Okay.
All right. Okay, Nikisha. 2 minutes on the clock. What did you think? Oh, no, not what did you think. What did you... tell us the plot. Tell us the plot of Evil Dead 2013. Go.
So it opens up with this girl wandering in the woods, and then she gets captured, and we're feeling sorry for her because why is this girl being tied up? And people are about to obviously sacrifice her, but apparently she has been possessed by the evil deadness, and her father has to kill her because she killed the mom, and she was going to wreak havoc on the world. And so they burn her up in the basement of this cabin. So then cut to, we have a whole bunch of friends meeting in this cabin because Zoe from Zoe's Extraordinary Playlist, she is going through a drug addiction, and she can't sing about it to, you know, make it go away. So she has to get her friends to come and help her so that she can go clean. And her brother is there as well. Apparently they have been estranged and haven't seen each other. So anyway, they're trying to build their relationships and blah, 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 blah. So then they go into the basement because there was like a bad smell, and they realize that there's a whole bunch of dead animals. They find a book, which is the Book of the Dead. There's this awful teacher character that I hate who opens the book and reads the things and then wreaks havoc, unleashes the evil into the world. And so obviously, because Zoe is the most vulnerable, she is the one that gets possessed first. We have a lot of what happened in the other movies with the trees, you know, taking hold of her and all of
30
that
seconds.
awful stuff. Great. So then her brother, there's deaths and possessions and people are dying, except now there's the brother and the friend and her. He buries the sister alive and ends up saving her, but then he has to blow up the cabin, and the Zoe tries to defeat the rest of the evil by like cutting off things with chainsaws. And I think that's it. She kind of lets it go.
That's the plot.
I don't know. There's so many things.
Well,
I kind of forgot what happened at the end.
Just to be clear, she doesn't let it go.
She doesn't let it go.
She doesn't. She doesn't let it go. She says, "Feast on this, motherfucker." She throws the chainsaw into the mouth of the demon, and then the earth reclaims the demon, and she says, "Go back to hell, bitch."
Great line. Yes. Truly forgot. I mean, there's been so many of these movies, and my brain is in another spot right now.
She lets it go. And she lets it go. I'm just like, no.
And evil is upon the land, and here we are.
Yes. I meant to say, like, she defeats it, but in my brain was like, letting it go meant that it was defeated. So,
sure.
Yes. So that is my sleep-deprived retelling of this. So let's get into the likes and gripes, and as we do that, Brian has already explained what has actually happened at the end, but we'll continue to talk about what the ending actually was. It's all for your entertainment, guys. All for your entertainment.
We're just trying our best.
We're just
Hashtag
trying our best.
We're not horror experts. We're horror lovers.
Exactly. No degrees in horror or filmmaking or things. We're just doing it because we love it. So let's get into likes and gripes. And Jamie, do you want to start?
And now our likes and gripes.
Sure. So as somebody who loves the original Evil Dead trilogy, I really enjoy this reimagining of it. I like that, you know, they lean into the like scary horror a little less into the, you know, comedic comedy that we've been getting in the last in 2 and 3. Evil Dead 2 : Dead by Dawn and Medieval Dead. But no, I mean, I really enjoy this. I think like the cold open with the hillbillies pursuing the young girl and then her, you know, saying that she's going to take their soul is really good. And then all of a sudden we like cut to this other group of folks. I really enjoy like what's bringing them all together, because again, it's like at this point, who's like going to some like dumpy cabin that looks like this, where if we were in like now times, like I think about all the like people who are posting on TikTok that are like, I showed up at my Airbnb and like it's really sketching me out, and so they're like documenting it because it's not what they expected. Like nobody's going to a dump and just staying there because they're probably thinking, oh, I'm gonna get murdered here, and then they're trying to get their money back. So like,
but also,
I like that. Oh, sorry.
No, but also, Jamie, to that point, like, their family owned the house. That was their house. So, like
it's more believable that like they themselves are going there.
Exactly.
And like
totally.
that's like I was just about to say, like, I like that change because again, what else would compel them to stay if not for some kind of family connection to it? And it's like the memories that it holds with their mom, like all of that is enough to get me like, okay, I could see why they would like stick around, even though the lock is broken, even though the place was trashed, even though they're like in the middle of nowhere, like all of that you feel like is compelling enough to be like, get the fuck out. But all the other stuff that we've gotten in context is like, okay, I get it. I don't like the situation, but I get it.
Yeah, I was also gonna say, like, if you didn't have an urgency to it, like the detox situation, like you'd probably go like a weekend before and do a little, spring cleaning, do a Swiffer, like, dust a little bit, like totally.
Absolutely.
And then you stay. And then you stay. Like some Fantastic in the shower. Maybe put up a curtain so it's not just like open like,
shower.
Yeah, maybe like, put a little protective case over the furnace that's right next to the shower. Like,
Never
I
seen that
don't
in my
understand. I need somebody to explain to me how that little furnace thing works because I don't really dabble in cabins. So if someone could slide into our DMs and just give me a
great you say that because we welcome our guest, the property brother. No, I'm kidding.
That would be great.
That would be great.
Yeah. This episode is now about cabin real estate.
Sponsored by HGN.
Yeah. HGTV coming at you.
Yes.
But yeah, I really enjoy like, what's bringing us here. I also a huge highlight. So like most of this movie is made with practical effects. There are some really, really excellent scenes where you're just like, ugh, like it's gross. And thinking about how they actually did it is so impressive. I'm a sucker for a movie filled with practical effects, as I've talked about many times. So to hear that like that burial scene, them then reviving her after the burial is excellent. Truly, I know we said that she walks away at the end and everything's fine. But in reality, she gets a car flipped on top of her arm and she has to yoink her arm. And yes, I said yoink. Yoink her arm.
Yeah, that's a perfect description of it.
Underneath that scene is disgusting.
Oh, yeah.
I fucking love it. That's like one of my favorite scenes in that. Where she's like, trying to get the chainsaw, but like, it's gross, but it's like, it's very visually captivating. And again, like the fact that they did all of that with the practical effects is so cool. The burn scene when she scalds herself in the shower is gross. I could just say all of them, and I think that they're all
do it.
Right.
But those are just the ones that really stand out, that I really, really enjoy. I'll quickly go to my biggest gripe with this one. It's the acting.
Girl, I'm so glad you said that.
With the exception of Jane Levy, she's the only one that I like in this film. I feel like she's the only one that's like really, like she's meeting the intensity of the situation. And for me, and I'm sure we'll get into this when we talk about Brains, but like for me, I can't speak to like the timeline specifically, but like her reaction to having withdrawal symptoms and like her irritability feels very on par with like what would actually be happening. And so like her escalating, us knowing, we like know what's going to happen because we've watched the other movies and we like know what to expect. But like her escalation really makes sense for like what feels very real. everybody else around her, like, doesn't seem to be, I mean, I think that, like, you know, we have the friend who's the nurse and, like, is trying to be helpful and, like, trying to take a leadership role, but ultimately is so, like, blinded by all of that stuff that leads to her demise. But I think, like, truly the friend who reads the book, and again, Eric. We complained about this. Yeah, Eric. I did not recall a single person's name.
I had to look it up. I looked it up so that I could trash him during this episode.
Yeah. Right. Yeah, he just like, his character doesn't make sense. It really knocked a lot of Skull's points off for me, because, like, we already get, you know, we talked about this in Evil Dead, where it's like, who is going through all of this, rifling through weird shit that you find in a cellar, and then, like, feeling compelled enough to read it. And there's this part of me that's like, is there something about the entity or about the power that's, like, compelling people to read it? Like, we haven't really talked about that, and you get that element in other things where it's like, oh, like, there was just this force that, like, really made me want to do that. Like, the force is what brings them to it, but it's, like, their own stupid curiosity that then leads to them to, like, open it, reciting it. But, like, there's so many steps that he goes through to read the thing, which is already stupid. But then, having seen all of these disturbing images, his, like, reaction to everything still does not meet the occasion that they find themselves in my opinion. Yeah. And so I'm just like, you worked so hard. You, like, did the scratch paper to figure out what page was ripped out. And then, but you also, like, didn't read the book in time. Now you're reading it after, you're like, oh, I guess I read all this stuff. And then later you're like, I think I leashed the hell upon us, or, like, whatever. But, like, still you're, like, so not animated about the fact that perhaps you've just doomed not only the 5 of you, but also, like, the world. Like, have more of a reaction to that. This is a not good situation that you find yourselves in. Like, where are the emotions? Like, there are none. And I find that very strange. And it's like, that's, like, really hard to sift through. And I don't know if that's also, like, you know, trying to channel the first Evil Dead, where it's like, it's, you know, a bunch of friends who are all getting together and working on this project, and, like, I'm willing to let it go more because I'm not expecting them to, like, be top tier actors. But here I'm like, no, you're like going through, like, this feels like weird and intentional, but it doesn't make any fucking sense, because, like, why are you acting this way?
Yes, absolutely.
I wanted to take a beat because I know that it sounds like you guys are on the same page as me.
Yes.
No, absolutely.
Definitely.
Okay, yeah, Jamie, just to piggyback off of the teacher, because I feel you're right. Well, first off, let me backtrack to the acting, because that was one of the first gripes that I had. And in my notes, I just put, is the acting bad? Is it the script? And then as I went through the movie, it's like, maybe it's a little bit of both, but I think mostly it's just not great acting that's happening. And I think because go ahead, Brian.
Oh, no, just quickly, something that Jamie figured out last night or did research on is that the 2 writers, English is not their first language. Spanish is. Diablo Cody did a script.
She, like, doctored the script.
She doctored this script so that, like, it's a little cleaner. But I do think that some of the language barrier in the end, script-wise, may have, like, tweaked that. I don't know. I'm just surmising. But, like, a lot of this definitely feels, especially in the second half of this movie, feels very Jennifer's Body. In a good way, especially with those last 2 lines and stuff. I was so happy Jamie found that last night, because it actually really, like, opened up and explained quite a bit. But one of my gripes, Nikisha, is also the acting outside of Jane Levy. So, like, I think we're all on the same page there for sure.
Absolutely. And that's what I was going to say. I think it's just because Jane is such an incredible actress that she also just outshines everyone anyway. So maybe if everyone was kind of on the same playing field as far as acting, it wouldn't be as noticeable. or I would really just think about, oh, maybe it's just this script and not them in particular. But because Jane makes it work for her so well, I want to just blame the actors, which I hate to say, but yeah, it just could have been better for me because I wanted to be invested in everything that was happening. Because, like Jamie said, there's a reason why they're going there. They're going there to support their friend and sister, and it makes sense why they are there, but everything else was just a little blah for me. Also, is that Ash's car from the previous movie in the opening scene? Love it. Here for it. Loved the opening scene as well with the father and the daughter, and I love that the cabin looks exactly the same as it has in the other movies with the swing on the porch and all the other stuff. So
even if it's in a different state, it's still the same. It's still the same magical cabin that's just hopping from one state to the next, which is totally fine. I'm here for it. My belief is suspended for that. Love it. Also, one gripe that I had is that I didn't like that there was a literal flashback to the girl being burned on the post when all the friends go down to the basement, because it just felt like we've already seen that scene, and it was a very obvious scene with obvious things that we know that it happened in that cabin. So it's like the audience isn't dumb. We know that that's what happened in the place. I don't think I didn't need a literal flashback to what actually happened in that moment. It's like your audience is smarter than that, so just let them figure it out. You know, the quote "You shouldn't have touched anything from that basement" is the smartest thing ever said, and it was said by Jane. So that gave a few points on the skulls for me because, like Jamie was saying, people are absolutely not peopling in this at all, and especially the friends. I really feel like she has kind of sucky friends who are not listening to her, and I also hate the trope of like not listening to women in general, or like the trope of like being a drug addict, so anything they say we automatically don't believe them because of previous history. But again, that's also coming from the perspective of like us as an audience knowing what is really happening and saying like, well, no, you need to believe her this time, even though the history might say something else about, you know, her believability. But anyway, the gore was fantastic, lots of jump scares, absolutely loved all of the blood and guts, and we didn't talk about it, but the girlfriend Natalie, so when her hand gets possessed, or when, you know, something happens and I was like, oh, are we gonna get a hand possession? And then we did, and I was like, yes, and then like that electric meat cutter or whatever, and it wasn't even just her hand, it was her whole arm. I mean, she did it to the elbow. And that was just so great to watch, especially when she's standing there and saying, like, I feel a lot better now. And then the arm just plops to the ground. Oh, my gosh.
And it's just, like, holding on by, like, a tendon.
Oh, yeah.
I also was like, I don't think that little meat cutter's gonna... I don't think it's called a meat cutter, but I don't think that meat cutter is like going to work in that way. An electric knife,
electric slicer.
Yeah, what are they called?
Yeah, like an electric...
I know, it reminds me of Thanksgiving.
Yeah.
Right. Because that's what you see it as, like they're cutting the turkey or cutting meat with the the thing.
Also, that meat they're cutting looks disgusting. I wouldn't eat that.
Absolutely.
What were they doing? Who made that? Who cooked that?
Some sort of a roast. Yeah, it was like blue. Like it was like I don't know.
This is not cooked. You're gonna have forget the possession. You're gonna have food poisoning.
Yeah. This movie is just an analogy for food poisoning. But that transition was great.
Mm-hmm.
Oh yeah,
but the media was like, "What are you like? You're already staying in this cabin. You might as well like have brought like sandwiches. I don't know,
right, or something. Especially because it's like old and rotting anyway. It's like, what are you trying to cook in that kitchen? What works in that kitchen? Because everything is breaking down anyway. Mm-hmm. I was surprised that the live burial actually saved Zoe, because I was thinking that she was under there for 2 seconds. Like, leave her there a little bit longer, let her marinate a little bit more, and then see if it'll be if she'll be okay. But it was a nice twist that she was the one who survived it all and had to be the one to let the evil go, to kill the evil. So I liked that twist. At first, it wasn't a twist. I liked how that panned out, because at first it seemed like she would be the one that would be possessed and her brother would be the one to like save the day. But it's one of those, well, she kind of like saved, even though he saved her, she ended up like saving herself as well as really just as well as saving the world. And chainsaw, yes, love that there was a chainsaw added, but in a different way. That was also fantastic. In the hand of the car, you've already said that. Loved it. Ooh. Like top moment. That and the arm cut off was
with the meat slicer. Yeah,
the meat slicer. It was fantastic. I just love all of the shots were amazing. And the blood rain with the cabin fire in the back was such a beautiful shot. It reminded me of the blood rain in, I was going to say Up, guys, in Nope.
Man.
Remember
Can y'all tell I'm just not here today?
That was a wild Pixar movie. That was a crazy Pixar movie.
Just the blood rain on the house. So, yes, that reminded me of that. I also love the end credits, too. Like we talked about there was being a scene at the end, but I was looking at some of the credits because it looked so cool. It reminded me kind of the opening of Sweeney Todd with the blood kind of running everywhere through the credit names and things. Yeah. So, I really enjoyed the end credits. So this was a really great movie. The only big gripe was just kind of the acting and people not peopling, but other than that, as far as just gore and action, and I mean, you're here for Jane, and it's a really fun time. Oh God, that I will never forget that hand underneath the car because that was just such a great shot. And I'm now curious to look up and see if there's any kind of behind the scenes on how they did that kind of stuff because it's fantastic. Yeah, Brian, your likes and gripes?
Sure, I'm going to start with my gripes. Your dumb white hippie boyfriend. You got to tell your friends. You have to tell your friends. If you're like, wait, pages 1 and 2 are exactly what we're at. Like, yeah, you got to be like, listen, everyone. Like, I may have made a mistake. Like, absolutely, you have to tell your friends.
You have to.
I agree with both of you on the acting. I agree wholeheartedly with everything Jamie said. You have to justify him reading the book. You have to. Like, it just because the movie didn't even do a job. Like, maybe he was hearing whispers. Even the original Evil Dead, like, she was being possessed by her hand was drawing the book while she was looking at the clock. Like, that kind of just gave you this sense of, like, something else is happening here. I feel like this movie doesn't do that at all. Especially because, like, I love that it's wrapped in plastic with barbed wire. I thought that was awesome. I just didn't believe, like, that he would just, like, willy-nilly. Like maybe he was in my opinion, maybe he shouldn't have been a teacher. Maybe he should have been an antiquities dealer. You know what I mean? Like, something that would make him a little bit more interested in seeing what this thing was.
Right.
And my two biggest gripes from this movie is Jamie and I talked about it while watching the movie. There's no way, and the original movie does this well, there's no way that people wouldn't have heard commotions in the next room. Like, she cut off her arm and screamed, and people didn't come in till, like, a little bit later. Like, like, he was being attacked in the bathroom by her cutting her face off. People would have been there much sooner. Like, I just don't believe in a cabin like that has thin walls that people wouldn't be more involved in every scenario. The original movie does that because it's all happening in the same room. So that took me out of it a little bit. But the biggest gripe of this movie is you do not, I don't care what kind of a movie you are, you don't kill a dog. You don't do it. I can't watch it. I don't enjoy it. Like,
Poor dog. Grandpa? What's his name?
Like Grandpa.
Grandpa. Don't name it Grandpa if you're gonna kill it. Yeah, that's even worse.
I know.
Yeah.
Listen. It absolutely did exactly what it was supposed to do. Like, it really set an expectation that anything goes, but, like, also fuck that noise. Okay. My likes. The opening is fantastic. I think that if The Evil Dead Rise pulls off its opening sequence, I don't know what it is. I have no expectations. I think that, like, if we get another Evil Dead movie with an excellent opener, like, this could rival, like, the best of Scream openings in terms of, like, a chain having, like, that you get excited for pre-credits kind of, like, opening. I loved all the Easter eggs. I think this movie does an exceptional job at creating something fresh, but also honoring what came before it. It's a totally different tone. It's trying to do something in a different way, but you get the car, you get the necklace, the woman, so you get her drawing, like being an artist. You get what happened to her eyes. Like you get like some of those lines you're used to. Yes. You get the hand stuff. Like it honors it, but also makes it new. And I really appreciated that. This movie was absolutely enhanced by the fact that we just watched the original trilogy. I think that the true crowning achievement of this movie is the narrative of a detox. I think that the analogy to being possessed during a detox is exceptional. I think that it justifies people not listening to her. So I disagree with you, Nikisha. I think that also because they've tried it once before and she tried to get out of it and they made a pact that they would not let her get out of it, everything she says and does cannot be trusted. And I don't think it's because that she's a woman, it's because it's her. And so I believe that they would like they would not question anything until they couldn't like argue that it wasn't a demon. Like, and I think that's what makes this work for me a lot, because I would have had the same complaints as we have in a million other movies, like Watcher and all that. Like, just listen to her for 2 seconds. Like this one, no, like she's going through a detox like that. I've seen like stuff like that. It might as well be a demonic exorcism in some ways, because like it's really painful and truly awful. I like that this could have taken place in the Ash universe, like in some ways, like even though that's not explicitly said, like I like thinking that it could be. I love that Mia is extra sensitive to the smell like the dog is when she's started to get possessed. Cutting the roast transition. I thought the editing was great. These quick cuts with the sound, the possession, the car, like all that was like really, really great. I think it was the perfect pacing. The setup and exposition was not dragged out. We got it. We understood who these characters were. We understood what they were trying to do. Boom, we find the book. Like, we're just right in. I really appreciated that. The music and score are amazing because they're campy. Like every time they see something like the river overflowing the bridge or like a death, you hear banana. Like it's like that, like very campy. Because what this Jamie and I talked about this banana. Because Jamie and I were talking about the fact that this movie is subverting your slapstick expectations. You have the nails flying at them. You have people getting beat up in bathrooms. He slips on a piece of flesh like a banana peel and hits himself on the toilet. Like in Evil Dead 2, that's a joke. In this one, it's not. But you also have the underscoring of like this campy music, which allows it to not be undercut. Because you're trying to do something new. I thought that was just like so perfectly balanced. I loved that. We love rules here. I love the book lays out the steps of being possessed in beautiful pictures. I love the stairs scene when Natalie's going down the stairs and like the first one's like kind of soggy and it sags. Like it's just like really, really well done. I like that the chainsaw shot of like them focusing on the chainsaw. I was like, no, I need the battery. Like that was spectacular. Jamie pointed that out to me last night, and that's one of my favorite things about it. I love that heavy breathing in the bag when she's in the pit is just like really great. Yeah. I love that David was able to save her. I like that even though he, as the older brother who like really fucked up, I like that he was able to give his sister a second life. Like, and even if you take this all as an analogy for detox and her getting through it, even though she lost pieces of herself and she burned all of the bridges of her friends, she was able to move on, and that was given to her by both her own willpower and her brother giving her a boost. Really appreciated that aspect of it. The car's flip sequence is spectacular. The blood ring we always talked about. And one of my favorite things about this is that how she attaches the chainsaw because she needs more leverage. Like how she kind of like slips her little stub in there. I love that. I thought it was amazing. And then the quotes, what happened to her eyes? I had to do it and I feel much better. That scene we talked about. Dying wouldn't be so bad right now. I just don't want to become the devil's bitch. Eric had a good line before he died. I'll give that to him.
Yep.
And then, as we mentioned, feast on this motherfucker and go back to hell, bitch. This movie's great. I think this movie is a ton of fun. But I came with questions for the two of you.
Oh, God.
My first question, and this is more of an observation, and I want to talk to you about it. So I'm going to talk for like 30 seconds, and I'll kind of open it up. But it seemed like only women were being possessed to start this movie. You had Jane Levy going first, then you had her doctor friend, and then you had, the girlfriend with the arm and cutting her arm off. I was actually disappointed in some ways that Eric was possessed. I thought this was fascinating that the book shows that like it enters through a woman's vaginal cavity, it seemed like, because the book even did that. And then we have the tree scene where that happens. I thought it was fascinating that like this demon would almost attach itself to women for whatever reason. Obviously that's not the case because Eric ended up being possessed, and it seems like the trailer for Evil Dead Rise, it's mostly women being possessed as well. I don't know, we haven't seen it. I have kind of, based on that, one, how did you feel about the tree scene in this one? Because we talked about it being a gripe in Evil Dead. Two, was it justified or made better because the book kind of shows that? And three, if it was only women being possessed in this one, do you think that had something interesting to say, or just feels misogynistic or something like that? I'll kind of open that. Maybe this is tailing into brains, but I was just curious about how you think it works in the context of this movie.
Yeah, those are all great questions because I wasn't initially bothered by the fact that, and Jamie, if you disagree, like when I was watching this, I wasn't bothered by it being females. But it's a great point that you said that in this one in the book, it's pictures of females, for whatever reason it is, but. That's a great connection that it's like, oh yeah, well, of course it's just going to be the females in the movie that are possessed. But it wasn't something that I thought, oh my gosh, just females again. But I guess more so because we know that Jane's character is the one that's going through the detox. So we already know that she's going to be a pivotal part in the possession. So I didn't really think about that. And then the fact that the people who are really next to her trying to help her were the girls and not necessarily like the teacher, Eric. He was kind of not helping her at all.
He was too busy reading, doing some light casual
exactly.
reading.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
So yeah, it's that really didn't bother me. And I think that it was nice to see it in the book, and the tree thing didn't bother me either. But I think that's because we already saw it played out once in a situation that didn't seem like it worked out. So then to know that it could come back again in this capacity, with a movie that was already a little bit better in context of everything, it seemed like it worked out for me. I don't know. What about you, Jamie?
Yeah, like I think that we're primed for it already if you watch the other ones, so it doesn't like shock you in the same way. I also think you're primed for like women. Like I think even, I think I had the DVD or have it. I don't know, but I think there was like a segment for like the OG Evil Dead where it was like, the women of the Evil Dead. Like it was like a thing because like the women are the ones that get possessed. So in my brain, oh my God, maybe I've internalized misogyny and that's why I've normalized this. I don't know. But like, I feel more primed to like accept this because of the other ones and I didn't really think anything of it. Also because then the friend Eric gets possessed at the very end too. But yeah, I don't know if there's something that they're trying to say, like you said, is it because they're more willing to be supportive and helpful and like empathize that empathy is like their downfall and we need to be cold and heartless and uncaring to protect ourselves from possession?
No, that's a good question because, like, I also think it could be symbolic of the people closest to her, like we talked before, and like Jamie just alluded to. You're going to be more hurt by helping with the detox and your friendship than potentially not in that possession. I also think that because, spoiler alert, but we spoiled it all already, because Mia is the final girl of this movie and gets away and lives, I think that also makes it a little bit better that she walks away from all of this. So I don't know. I just thought that was super interesting while watching it this time. And then my second question is mostly for Nikisha. Did watching the other three for the first time enhance your viewing of this? Do you think you could have enjoyed this the same amount going in cold, not knowing the Evil Dead franchise?
I feel like that gap is very small of the difference between me enjoying it on its own and it being enhanced. I feel like I would have enjoyed it on its own, and now that I've watched it before, it's like 3 notches up of really enjoying it, mostly because of the Easter eggs of like Ash's car and knowing what the chainsaw represents and the hand possessions and all those things are just made me like it even more because it was included in something I had seen before. But I feel like if I watched this on its own, I would absolutely enjoy it as well because of just because of the gore in general and how and the beautiful shots. So yeah, I think that I would have enjoyed it, and it is now even more enjoyable because I've watched the other ones. So
cool.
I dig it. Fantastic. Should we get into our brain section? So many brains, so many body parts, so much blood. Oh my God. So we've already kind of talked about this a little bit, but Mia's support group, her friends. So I just have a general question, and this is more opinion based as a professional in the mental health field. Jamie, do you think that it was a wise decision for the friends to take matters into their own hands, or do you think it would have been more helpful if they would have sought out professional help? Because they don't really mention her doing professional help. They just mention she has had her own attempts of trying to get clean with her friends by her side, and it just hasn't worked. And so after so many attempts, they're like, well, this is going to be the last time. Do you think they should have just said, okay, well, all the other times didn't work out. Let's try to get her with like a professional to help. How do you feel about that?
Yeah, I think that I don't think it's good. I think it's
okay.
I think it's pretty bad.
Like all evil stuff aside, like if this was just, friends really trying to help someone, with no possession.
Like only one of them has like some medical knowledge, but like I think that that's not like they need like a team. They need like somebody who has like medical health knowledge, but also someone who has like mental health knowledge. They also I think need somebody who's like impartial, who doesn't have that like connection. Like they have this like personal connection, and I feel like it's going to make it harder for them to like navigate this situation. And I just like I don't think that they're thinking about all of the like potential consequences of going through it this way. And again, like they are also they themselves are dealing with the trauma of the fact that their friend OD'd and died. Right. And it's like, oh, maybe that is something that like you guys also need to work through in your own therapy. But like, is involving yourself in this way helpful or potentially like more harmful? But I don't think that they're able to like think about that because of what they themselves have endured. And so like going about it this way feels like a bad idea, separate from the possession.
Right. Yeah. I mean, it's understandable to want to be there for your friends and support them, especially to your point of her ODing and them, seeing it or experiencing it, and to then say, I don't want to see my friend go through that, so I am going to personally put myself, make myself available to them to help them get through this. The intention makes sense, but also it's like you can only do so much as someone, like you said, who is not a medical professional, and also deal with your own trauma. Put your mask on before you put someone else's mask on. Deal with your own stuff before. Great. So my next question is mostly about the brother who apparently didn't see his mom pass and really wasn't around when she was sick, and Mia was complaining that he left her with the mom and she had to see all of that. So do you think in your experience, folks who fear seeing dying parents regret not making themselves available to their parents, or do you think it's healthy that they just don't want to see their parents in that suffering state, so they separate themselves from that potential trauma?
Yeah, I mean, I think that's like such a hard question to answer because I feel like, as I've mentioned before, like the context is so important.
Yeah.
But I mean, I think that it's like really, really traumatic to, like, I imagine that there's a lot of trauma in watching your parent, like, you're watching your parent die, but also like the circumstances. And if it's something like, the alluded mental illness, I imagine that that's like even more traumatic and difficult. And yeah, it's like here's siblings, one of which like was there when it happened and one wasn't, and what then are like the things that they both have taken on as a result. He doesn't even want to talk about it when she's like reflecting on those memories that like she was there for, like him kind of compartmentalizing all of that and wanting to avoid it, and her also avoiding it but in a very different way, right? Like she struggles with drug addiction, but like there's definitely avoidance in dealing with those like really intense feelings through that if she's high and not like able to sit with those emotions. And so like there's still avoidance happening, but just like different from the physical distancing oneself the way that the brother does it. So I think that can I speak to like what regret he may or may not have? Not necessarily, but like I think that there's a lot of like really challenging emotions that I imagine that he's like probably still grappling with, especially now, like returning to this family cabin, reuniting with his sister, like to seeing his sister remind him of it, like all of that. So like there's so much that I think is built into like that trauma. It's not just like regretting not being there for his mom, but like coming back to his sister. How is that like re-traumatizing him and stirring all of that back up?
Yeah, talk about ripping the Band-Aid off. Like, you're seeing your sister again for a detox at your family's old cabin that's now dilapidated. You're seeing all of the old friends again. Like, you could have like introduced yourself into the scenario like a little with more steps than like everything at once. That just feels like insanely overwhelming, just in general. Like at the beginning, like I kind of felt the script does a good job of making you feel his anxiety when the friend says like she's in the back waiting for you. I and also if the acting had been a little bit better, I think that like that moment actually would have been even more impactful.
Would have landed a little better for sure. Absolutely. And the last question that I have in this section, I don't know if you have ever had to deal with patients who were going through addictions in any form, but how Zoe was reacting as far as withdrawals and such, do you feel like that was a believable thing? Well,
I will always laugh when you say Zoe.
Oh, yes.
I am not laughing. I am not laughing at like the very real issues.
Yes,
I am laughing that you said Zoe instead of Mia. That is all.
Yes.
Thank you.
Yes. What do you think?
No, I think it's believable. I've like worked with folks with substance use issues and like in a variety of stages, but I definitely I never worked in like a hospital or like a detox. Well, I did work in a behavioral health hospital very briefly, but like I wasn't in like a rehab unit. I've never worked on like a detox unit or anything like that. But I think that like that irritability, also like cold turkey is scary. And like you have to be super careful because like there are certain substances where like withdrawal can be deadly. And so like again, going back to like, is doing this on your own and going cold turkey a good idea? No. So, you know, like how do we know what stuff she has been using, and like definitively again, like why you guys are not, you guys shouldn't be doing this.
Don't do it.
But no, I think that like we don't get like a ton of the physical symptoms with the exception of like the seizure that she has, but like we're also operating under the assumption that that's like her being possessed. So I mean the seizure could be a symptom of withdrawal for some folks, but really that like irritability I think is very believable and realistic, and just like, you know, how the shift in like how she's treating her friends, again separate from the possession, but just like how she's interacting with all of them in the beginning versus like once she, you know, throws all her drugs away.
Grand. I mean, either way, the performance was fantastic of what she did with the role, and it's nice that it was actually something that is believable in a sense of someone who is going through withdrawal. But seek medical professional help, guys. Don't just try to do things on your own. We all need somebody to help us. So don't be proud. Ask for help. Otherwise, you just might get possessed. Yes.
Yeah, asking for help is a strength. Otherwise, you will be possessed.
Otherwise, you will be possessed.
Whoa. What a consequence.
Yes. Fantastic. That's all the questions that I have for that. Should we go into Rotten Tomatoes?
Yeah, let's do Rotten Tomatoes.
It's the Rotten Tomatoes game.
All right. I mean, let's get rotten. Oh, no.
Oh.
Wow.
You heard it here first, folks.
Right.
Maybe I was possessed. Okay, what do you think this has on Rotten Tomatoes?
I'm going to say 83.
Jamie?
I'm going to go lower. I'm going to say like 68.
A lot lower.
This has a 63% on Rotten Tomatoes.
Oh.
Still considered fresh. However, the critics' consensus is it may lack the absurd humor that underlined the original, but the new look Evil Dead compensates with brutal terror, gory scares, and gleefully bloody violence.
Absolutely.
Yeah, the audience score is a 64, so it's around the same, which is surprising to me because I feel like this is highly regarded, not only as a horror remake, but just as a remake in general. Like, I always feel like I see this listed at least in the top 5 greatest horror remakes of all time. I also, the critics' consensus kind of bothers me that it says it lacks the absurd humor that underlines, like, but that's not what that's the point of this movie, is not to do what happened before. So I think that.
But if you're calling it an Evil Dead,
fair.
then like maybe the expectation. That's why I say like, you know, what expectations are folks having because it's falling into this chain, and then when you're not delivering on like, you know, something that is pretty core to the original trilogy.
Yeah,
that
but
then
also
warrant this type of
that's fair, totally fair.
Criticism.
The original wasn't supposed to be a comedy, though, correct? The OG first Evil Dead was not, like, it went into an absurd, like the second and third one, but the original intent wasn't for it to be like a comedy horror. right?
I mean, I
just
think...
in saying that, like, since this is a remake of the first one, then it would make sense that it's not gonna be a funny one because the original one wasn't supposed to be like that absurd. If the original wasn't supposed to be, just throwing that out there.
I think that there was always an element of absurdity in all of them. I think that what that absurdity has looked like has like shifted over time. But I think that like there's still, because you still get the scenes of like Ash being shit on in the very first one. Like
Fair.
when he's by himself and just like navigating all of that. I think that like that's the most of where we get it. But I hear what you're saying. Like it definitely escalates significantly. So it's like, if they're trying to go back to the very, very first one where it's like the least amount of comedic and elements and humor, then maybe they succeeded. So like, why are people pissed?
Why are people pissed? Either way, it was a great movie.
Why are people
we all enjoyed it.
Yeah, I agree with Jamie. I think the original one was supposed to have, especially with the eyes, the back and forth, with giving him the necklace and like. And like some of the brutality that happens to Ash, that's pretty funny. The demons kind of cracking jokes. I definitely think that the intention was for it to be a horror comedy to a lesser degree, like Jamie said in the second one. That's my opinion as well. Cool. Cool. And I wonder, again, I'm surmising because we haven't seen it. I'm wondering if that's why the new Evil Dead Rise is doing so well. I'm sure it's a great movie, and I'm sure that the gore and the scares are really fun. I wonder if, because we already have set expectations because of this Evil Dead movie, if people aren't expecting the kind of comedy and gore, or maybe they lean into those last 10 minutes of this movie a little bit more with the, feast on this motherfucker and go back to hell, bitch. Like, I'm curious as, I can't wait for this next one. But let's do the 4 S's.
Yes.
Skull, scare, shakes, and suggestions. The Talking Horrors 4 S's.
Okay, we are going to go through skulls, scares, shakes, and suggestions. We're going to rank them 1 through 4 and then give our suggestion of what we would kind of pair this with, if you will. Skulls is mental health and human behavior. Scares is how scary was it. And shakes is how likely are you to shake it off, forget about it. Jamie, let's start with you. Give us your numbers!
Whoa,
Possessed.
Such excitement.
I'm possessed.
Yeah. Oh, no, you have to tell me.
Oh, yeah. Hey, everyone. I'm possessed. I just want to let you know.
Hi, Possessed. I'm Jamie.
Yeah.
Gotta get the dad joke in there. So for Skulls, I'm giving this a 4. Again, I think that just like some of the acting and some of the choices just don't feel believable. And all 4 of those points go to Jane Levy's character. Scares, I'm giving this a 5. This is like, obviously, again, without the comedic elements, there's a lot more spookiness. But generally it's like the gross scenes are way more horrifying and like terror inducing because they feel way more realistic. Even though we get a lot of similar, like, body parts being ripped off, cut off in the OG ones, like based on the practical effects that you're seeing at the time, it's less scary. Now it like looks way more realistic, and that's like amping the horror factor. So I gave it a pretty higher score. For shakes, I'm giving this a 6. I think I have like recency bias because I also watched this recently by myself without Brian and then watched it again. So like it's like fresher in my mind, but I think if I hadn't watched it as recently, like I still think about it when I think about the chain as a whole, but it's not like the first things that I think of. I definitely think about the OG one. So it's like I have to kind of dig a little bit more in my brain to conjure up my experience with
Conjure?
Yep.
Nikisha, what are your numbers? Nikisha, give us your numbers.
Yes. So skulls are 3 for the same reason. People were not peopling except for Jane. So all those points to her as well. Scares, I gave it a 6. There was a lot of jump scares. I don't think we talked about the one where the demon hops out of the water when she's walking in the water after the car crash. That got
me too. Yeah.
Oh yeah. Got.
On top of all of the amazing gore. And then Shakes, I'm gonna give it a 5. I really enjoyed this movie, and I would absolutely watch it again. So thank you guys for introducing me to this chain. Woo-woo. Fun times.
Yeah, I would say that this is a 5 for me for Skulls. I think that I just count the idea and concept of detox and withdrawal as something that actually is believable and justifies kind of people's reactions. Everything else is kind of like, not great. I give this a 7 for scares. I think the combination of jump scares and the body horror that makes me like, cringe and squeal. I think that really, really got me, especially on this watch. And then Shakes, I'm going to also give this a 7. This is a really good movie. This is an excellent remake. And I think that this, when you're listing like best horror remakes, like this will always come up. So I feel like this is always kind of in the conversation, and things like that. So, I'm giving it a 7. But let's do some suggestions. Jamie, do you want to pop some suggestions why don't you pop some suggestions in the chat?
Yeah, I feel like this is kind of cheating, but I am going to do it anyway because it both has Jane Levy in it and also Fede Alvarez directed it, but you can't not suggest Don't Breathe.
Yeah,
sure.
Trigger warning for that movie for
big time.
Sure. But I do think that like there's a lot of similar elements to like his direction style. Again, another really great performance by Jane Levy in a horror role. And like, just she's like very like feisty, I think, between the two of these as like a final girl. Like she's like not just like letting things happen. She's I think like really standing her own and is a really like solid final girl. So if you want more of her, if you want more of this type of direction or like another movie from the same director, definitely watch Don't Breathe. I cannot speak for the sequel. I have not seen it and it does not interest me.
You saw the sequel, right, Nikisha?
Yeah. I was thinking like, did we not cover it? Why did I watch the sequel?
We were going to
watch it. And yeah, you watched it, and I was like, I don't think I want to watch this.
Yeah, you basically were like, it's not worth a full episode.
No. From what I remember, I definitely know that I loved the first one, and the second one was very questionable. So, okay. I was like, we had to have talked about this at some point. But
no, yeah.
I think we did, like, briefly.
Yeah, what's your suggestion?
Y'all are not going to like my suggestion, but I am going to say the Texas Chainsaw remake because I just love that movie so much.
Interesting.
Because if anything, it's the gore. And so if you want kind of the match of really nice, gory scenes with like a terrible script, but just gore galore, Texas Chainsaw remake.
Okay,
cool.
Gorlore. Galorg. Cool. So I have, I have 3 suggestions. I essentially took what I think are some of the best horror remakes of all time. And I would consider those The Thing. Thing is one of the best horror movies ever, but it's all, and you want to talk about practical effects and gore.
So good.
But it's a remake. So that counts to me. The Dawn of the Dead remake is fantastic. I think was Zack Snyder's best movie potentially. Really great. And then an underrated, excellent remake is The Crazies. Timothy Olyphant in The Crazies. It's a great performance. It's a great horror movie based on a previous version of The Crazies. So those would be my suggestions if you wanted to get into some other good horror remakes.
Fantastic. Well,
Not too shabby.
Not too shabby.
Not too shabby.
Brian coming in with all of the
That's Adam Sandler.
sound effects singing. Oh, from what?
The Hanukkah song. Not too shabby. David Lee Roth lights them. Yeah. Anyway, that's what goes through my
Obsessed.
head. That's a little insight into
How Brian's brain
how my
Brian
brain
said.
works. Even though I can't hear my thoughts, I can sing them back to you.
Which is also still amazing to me that there's no running inner monologue in your head.
Nope. It's all blank up there.
Well, on that note, that ends our episode of Evil Dead 2013. You can follow us at Talk Horror Pod, P-O-D, on all the social medias. We're doing some really fun things on the TikToks, so make sure you follow us. And Brian, where can they listen to us?
You can listen to us wherever you listen to podcasts. So maybe you're on Stitcher. Maybe you're on Spotify. You're probably on Apple Podcasts. So find us there. Rate and review us. 5 stars, please.
And thank you.
Thank you. Woo.
Yeah, Brian, what's the quote?
Feast on this, motherfucker. So
Absolutely.
good. It's so good. That
I
last
also said it when she said it, right?
Yeah,
I felt so good in that moment.
So the demon says like, I'm gonna feast on your soul, and then Jamie goes feast on this motherfucker, and then Jane Levy
I said
goes,
bitch because I couldn't remember what she.
well, you put the two
what she
together.
actually
You
said.
put the two together,
Yeah,
and then
yeah.
she said like feast on this motherfucker. Then she goes, go back to hell, bitch. And wait, at one point Jamie goes, man, Jane Lynch is so good in this, and I was like. Yeah, Sue Sylvester, really?
Now that's the movie I want to
got
see.
my brain.
Yeah, right.
Sue Sylvester.
Sue Sylvester fighting.
Yeah.
people.
So no, but Jamie.
I mean,
called
the
that,
one-liners would be fantastic.
Yeah, I know.
Oh my god.
But I loved that last 5 minutes and the two quotes: "Feast on this motherfucker" and "Go back to hell, bitch," are just like great, so great. Very Jennifer's Body feel to it for sure.
Grand. Well, thanks, guys. We'll
Bye.
see you next time.
Thank you.
Bye.
Evil Dead Rise next time.